My beautiful goddess of a girlfriend wanted the IKEA Norebo shelf off of Facebook Marketplace, but I said, stop! Let me make it for you. Because surely I'd be able to learn woodworking and create the shelf all before Christmas. Right? First, I had to make a plan. I started by looking at old photos of the discontinued Norebo shelving unit and getting a rough estimate of the dimensions. I found that it was 44 inches wide, 15 inches deep, and about 4 feet tall. I had also found out that the dresser unit doesn't even have a standard drawer, instead opting to be more of a housing unit for a sliding cart. I absolutely hated this, so I plan to make a sliding drawer instead, especially because the dresser will be seated on carpet. Next, I drew out a rough outline of what I wanted, highlighting the main dimensions I would have to worry about. These drawings are pretty solid though, for real. Lastly, I planned how the assembly would work. Point 1. I wanted the shelf to be easily disassembled in the case of transportation. Luckily, this is pretty easy to account for, as I could just screw in from the inside top of the drawer portion, which would go directly into the shelf supports, and then I could unscrew it whenever I needed to move the shelf. Point 2. I wanted to limit the visibility of screws as much as possible during this entire process. Luckily, I did a little bit of research and found out about something called pocket hole jigging. This meant that my screws could go into the wood at an angle when forming a joint instead of perpendicular and level with the surface of the wood. Then I could buy wooden inserts, insert them into the wood using wood glue, sand over it to make it completely flush surface. And with that, the planning stage came to a close. It was time to lock in.
Part 1! Shelf!
To get started, I measured and marked cut lines on some 2x4s to prep for the miter saw. Luckily, my dad was awesome enough to help me with a lot of this process by lending and teaching me the tools, holding the clamps, and ultimately making sure I did not saw my hand off. Then we got to cutting some pieces for the test box and started testing the pocket hole jig to get the process down. It was a very interesting process to learn, and I even had to buy a very unique right angle clamp specifically for it, which absolutely exploded in my hand every time I unlatched it. And then, tragedy struck. Update, we broke the wood driller for the pocket hole jig. The part that goes into our drill is now bent, so whenever you drill it, it's no longer straight, it goes like this. Detrimental for the wood. Hello. We did break it, but there's another wood drilling bit, luckily. That is around the same size as the distance we wanted to go into the wood. So that's nice. Yeah, the test box was very secure. So we're gonna go ahead and do the normal boxes, the good runs. After marking up the boards, we cut up the 2x4s to make 16 different 14-inch planks, and then try to get them as uniform as humanly possible. Once we confirmed that each piece was similar in size, I brought out the orbital sander to level everything out and smooth all of the surfaces. You probably couldn't tell because of the 8,000% speed increase, but if you look really closely, I actually inhaled enough sawdust to make a small birdhouse. Respiratory issues aside, I then got to drilling the pocket holes to eventually put together the support squares that would hold up the shelves. So we have 4 boxes like this. This will be the supports for the shelving units. We're just gonna work on sanding the top and side edges to make sure that you don't get a splinter, and that also the top where it connects to the top of the shelf and then the bottom where it connects to the top of the shelf under it are flush, so we can just nail. Because currently it is like barely uneven, so we're just gonna sand that down. As you can see, I finalized the support boxes and then we attached the first two to the top shelf. We then did everything again for the middle shelf and began to attach the two shelves together. You might remember that the Narebo supports are stacked directly on top of one another, but I ended up liking the staggered design a lot more because not only did it make attaching the two shelves much easier, it also just makes the shelf look a bit more unique and homemade, which I'm a huge fan of. Afterwards, we attached the lips to the sides of the shelves, which I will demonstrate for you all in a very sick edit.
Part 2! Dresser!
Good morning. It is day 2. We are setting off to Lowe's soon to gather wood and other materials for the dresser portion of the shelf. I know that we need wood screws and we need the drawer slider and lots of wood. So we're gonna go there, see what we think will work, and then go try it out. So wish us luck. This piece was definitely a balancing act because I really wanted the planks to be able to support a lot of weight on top, while at the same time being a relatively light frame itself. I came to the final design of using 3/4 inch wooden planks for the sides, 2x4s for the bottom, and then lighter strips for the back and top supports. I figured that if I supported literally every single area I possibly could, and then prayed a little bit, it should all just be fine. We're doing some sanding. It's cold as shit out here. The two that I'm sanding are going to be the sides. That right there is going to be the top. We're going to cut out. We're going to put a support underneath that, connected to the sides. We're going to build a 2x4 frame with some pegs to sand on the carpet. We've goated. Yeah, we did not end up making the 2x4 frame or the pegs, so don't know what I was talking about there. I'll tell you what we did do though. Lots of sanding on a 4-foot by 14-inch board, followed by some more pocket hole drilling to connect the sides to the top of the dresser unit. Side note, we did use wood glue on every single pocket hole joint to strengthen the connection even more. Next, we cut up some long strips to act as supports that would go inside the dresser. I was really focused on ensuring this thing would not fall apart, especially because it would have to bear the weight of 2 bookshelves on top, and would need to not sag, which would end up limiting the drawer's movement below. We then started to focus on making the whole unit stronger instead of just the top by adding back and bottom supports. We found some old fencing wood and cut it down nearly to size, making sure to only very lightly sand it. This is because we needed to ensure a very close fit, so the sides of the dresser could be exactly perpendicular with the ground. I measured, cut, sanded very slowly down to size over and over again to make sure it fit well, and then got to drilling it all together. Yeah. Looks good.
Part 3! Drawer!
Hello. Obligatory update. It's been a while since we've been sick for like 2-3 weeks. So there's not been a lot of progress done. But there has been some progress just now made on the drawer slide. I'm gonna switch the video and reverse it. So previously we had a 14-inch drawer slide, and that was way too big. It would hit exactly the length of the end of the shelf and then hit the very back. Meaning that any time you wanted to like roll the shelf out and then put it back in, it would hit the back and it would stick out the front. So we got a 12-inch one, and this one is also 100-pound carrying capacity instead of just 50. So that's awesome. So it'll leave some space. It'll leave some space for the drawer face to be inlet and flush with the overall design, and give it some space to not hit back here. And these just look a lot better. Metal ball bearing slides, boom. All right, Max, we're gonna do a vlog.
Okay.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the vlog. We have Maggie here today.
Hey.
Right now we're constructing the drawer.
actual drawer that's gonna slide in and out. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Back at it again with, you guessed it, lots of measuring. This time we're working with some pretty tight requirements to make sure the drawer fits into the dresser with enough room on each side of the dresser for the drawer sliders to fit in as well. So after measuring for like 30 minutes and then quintuple checking, I finally used the skill saw to chop up the board. This time my sister is helping out by offering an extra set of hands and mainly by being my emotional support DJ. Highly recommend getting one of those. You also might notice the new blue sander. His name is Brandon Sanderson and he is a fully battery powered and cordless sander. I love the old Sandy, but the wire did get in the way quite a bit, so this was a welcome upgrade to the toolbox and made the process a little easier by actually making sanding fun.
It's
Bet y'all didn't know I had pipes like that, huh? Anyway, next was making test pocket holes because at this point I was very much out of practice. Once those started to look good, I got to drilling in the real holes, which felt a lot more awkward than it actually looks, because imagine giving a side hug to a 3/4 inch thick plank of wood as hard as you can while drilling the hole into it.
So, the pieces are sanded and cut out, and we're putting them in a box formation. Originally it was kind of like not super exactly straight, but figured that once we screw it and glue it, it'll kind of just be warped together. We figured out, yeah, the sides have to be completely straight because of the drawer sliders, and some of them are kind of like that. So, figure that out.
Yeah, thanks to my past self for the bright illustration. What was really happening was some of the wood was not entirely straight, so when connecting the longer panels to the side panels, the long panel would curve, making it difficult to form a symmetrical rectangle. We may have just done something wrong though, because eventually it kinda just started to work. Then we put it in the dresser and saw that not only did it fit, but there was a perfect amount of space on each side as well. It was at this point I was getting really excited to see the final product. The next task was watching a 10-minute YouTube video on drawer slider installation, and then busting out the lantern because it was getting dark. I felt like a caveman with an iPhone and a drill here, and was really happy with the work that I'd led up to this point that I even let out a little giggle. So we actually ended up finishing the drawer on a different day due to it getting really late. This time we cut up some 1/4 inch plywood and nailed it to the bottom of the drawer to make it actually functional as a drawer. Exciting stuff. Another thing was putting on the drawer face, which would not only make the entire drawer prettier, but it would also make it flush with the dimensions of the dresser unit. Had a lot of trouble with this because no matter how straight I thought I cut and drilled it, it just simply was not straight. It took a lot of trial and error to get it mostly correct, but even then it still just was not 100%. So it's looking good so far. We have a working drawer like last time, but now it has a smoother drawer face. If you want to see inside, it also has a bottom, yay! So we put some glue on the seams just to make it, I don't know, stick together and look a bit more even. So once that's dry, I'll make sure to sand that. We got sand at the bottom, so that's all smooth. I'm going to have to worry about the gaps though. So like this closes, and then this gap is a bit big, but we'll figure that out. The bottom gap's okay. This side is perfect. The top is where we cut the really long cut, so I'm gonna level that out with the sander. And then after that's done, everything will be sanded. And once everything's sanded, then I will get to staining. So this one's good. I'm gonna stain this one, and then that'll take 4 hours. A bit of an off-camera update due to lack of footage, unfortunately, but this is the final product of adding the drawer face. I definitely think it was really worth it. And also another quick update, I did use a mallet and chisel to carve an inset handle into the drawer face to make it easier to go in and out. Originally, I did want to have a external handle and did not look good at all. So boom, full wood handle, baby.
Part 4, stain and finish.
What's up, guys? Follow me. Yesterday, I tested the stainer and the sealant on a piece of wood. That piece of wood turned out white. Follow me again. It maintained its color that it originally had with the stain, and whenever I applied a sealer, it still maintained that same color. I was naturally like, okay, it's time to go. We come over here, I sealed it, boom, it turned the wood yellow. I sanded off this piece, now it's white. That's yellow still. What the heck, bro? I was like, oh, okay. The sealer does that, that's bad. I'll just stain it first, because it looked white before. I stained this, boom, it turned yellow. That's pretty cool. Everything's turning yellow on me. So we're sanding all this shit off with a 120 grit, and then we're gonna go to a 320 finer grit. Get it all off, then we're gonna go to Lowe's and get a polyacrylic water-based sealer that should be clear. I'm going to hold the Lowe's employee that works the paint desk hostage until they answer all the questions I have. Afterwards, we will seal this whole thing up. Then it takes 4 hours to dry, 24 hours to kind of set in. Then I'll do it again, and then we'll let it sit for a week, and then I'll have a dresser and a shelf. Back at it again. We sanded most of this off. We did have to go get a sandpaper refill. After that, we're going to sand it a bit more, make sure all the yellow's off, and then we're going to test what we just got, which is a polyacrylic. Previously, we had the polyurethane, which was oil-based. That makes it dry longer, and it gives it an amber hue, causing the yellow color. This is a crystal clear top coat with a matte finish. Water-based, takes less time to dry, and is clear. This is what I wanted. Unfortunately for me, whenever I originally went to go buy a clear coat top finish, half the aisle was polyurethane, and I didn't know what I was doing, so. Yeah, it turned yellow. You see, it was around this point I learned about something called wood tannins, which are naturally occurring compounds found in wood that allow it to protect against fungi and insects. Coincidentally, and unfortunately for me, it also leaks out when it turns wet, meaning that whenever a stain or a finish is applied to the wood, it'll leak there and cause it to turn yellow. This is the best scientific looking graphic I could find of the explanation of wood tannins. I have no clue if this is right, but this is my proof. Now, I know you can't tell, but the staining process thus far has taken over twice as long as the actual shelf building process. Because first, I had to wait for the weather to warm up, for the stain and finish to actually be able to dry properly. And then, the polyurethane turned the wood yellow, and now the supposed clear coat does that as well. I was really only able to seriously work on the shelf during the weekends, which drastically hindered my timeline, because each coat of stain took 24 hours to dry, which you might need multiple. Then after those were done, you need to apply a finish coat. But nope, not just one. You need to apply up to 2 to 3 for the wood to be completely sealed, with at least 24 hours each. Now, this is the reason that there's no timelines of me actually doing the staining and finishing, unfortunately, because any chance I got to, I was just rushing to work on it, and I never even thought to bring up the camera, so apologies for that. But aside from that, rant's over, let's get back to it. Now, unfortunately, I was not able to completely remove the yellowing from the shelf, no matter how hard I tried, no matter what I did. But get this, I kind of liked it. Alright, I thought it gave it a bit more of a rustic homemade vibe, which in my mind translates to a my boyfriend made this for me sort of vibe, instead of it being store-bought from IKEA. So I was a fan. Call it Stockholm Syndrome if you want. But regardless, it was not my shelf, and I did have to check in with the boss lady, so I'll give you an update afterwards. Back at it one last time. We got some confirmation from the Shorty that the clear coat polyacrylic is acceptable.
Yeah.
So we're going to be applying a first layer, finishing up that first layer among all these 3 pieces right here, and then waiting 2 hours, lightly sanding it with a very fine grit. I think we have like a 320 or something like that. So we're gonna do that, and then after that's sanded, we're gonna dust it off again. We're gonna apply another coat just to finalize that, and then we're gonna let that sit for 24 hours, and then I think we're going to deliver it. Fingers crossed. But yeah, no time lapse this time because we are in a hurry. Yeah, after waiting for 24 hours, the wood was indeed dry. Yeah. But it still felt weird to the touch, right? So naturally I went to Google and I found out about something called wood curing, which meant that the finish stain wasn't completely ready to have items set upon it yet. It also meant that the shelf would need to sit at my house idle for another week minimum.
1 week later.
So after another week of my Shorty being shelfless, the wood was cured, meaning it was finally time to disassemble the shelf and get ready to deliver.
Part 5 Assembly!
Guys, I'm in a cave called the Devil's Anus with 12 confirmed kills. I thought it would be a fun trip, but now I'm trapped. I'm just joshing, yeah. We're actually joining the shelf and the dresser part. So I'm stuck in the Devil's Anus currently, with very little headroom, and I'm going to be drilling some holes to connect this part and the top part up here. And then some decoration and the final product.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for the assembly. It went pretty smoothly and was really easy actually, just like I planned it to be. Anyway, I did add a community reference from the TV show Community because that is her absolute favorite TV show of all time. It was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. I ended up adding the little marks or notches that Troy marks on the study group table in one of the episodes. So aside from that, everything was disassembled rather, and ready to go. It's delivery time.
Crisis alert! The shelf has been finished!
I'm gonna take you on a journey, and one that cannot simply be understood through words. You must feel this deeply in your bones to truly understand. So, close your eyes and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Imagine yourself finally loading up the project you've been working on for months into the car. Imagine yourself turning on the ignition and pulling out of the driveway. Now, imagine the worst thunderstorm you've ever seen in your entire life. You grit your teeth and drive because your Shorty is still without her shelf. You're on the highway now, and it's raining harder than you've ever seen. You can hardly see in front of you. The cars surround you, all swerving in the slick lanes. You hit puddles upon puddles which jolt your car every which way. You turn down the music to lock in like your life depends on it because now, it just might. You feel your forehead start to burn from a bright light reflecting off the rear view mirror. You squint your eyes in pain and peek at the disturbance over your shoulder. Yep, it's just as you had guessed. A lifted F-150 with high beams. It swerves around you because you're only going the speed limit. The monsoon should not slow you down. The truck barrels forward and hydroplanes an additional mile like a true American would. The wooden pieces in the back of your car tap against each other, threatening to get banged up right before the job is done. You hold steady and tighten every muscle in your body. Then, you finally round the corner onto her street. You pull into the driveway, and the rain slows. Now is your chance to bring it in without the shelf getting wet. You quickly step out of the car, and your foot sinks entirely into water. Oh yeah, it's shelf time. Now that the shelf has been completed and delivered, how long in total did it take for me to make this? Here's my start date. It's pretty solid. Here's my end date. And it's not that. Oh, shit. Even though the title of this video says, I built a shelf, it was not really the case. I mean, it is true that this was my idea, it was my money, and it was my hours spent planning and building this shelf. But despite all of that, it was really we who built this shelf. It was my family who, whether they knew it or not, emotionally and physically built the shelf with me. It was the kind people of YouTube who just give all of their knowledge for free and asking nothing in return. It was the kind people of Lowe's who helped answer all of the questions I had. And myself, who made a fool playing woodworker for 4 months. This shelf is not just a combination of wood from aisle 53 of my local Lowe's. It is a combination of all of the love and encouragement that everyone has given to me and to this idea. It is a physical embodiment of encouragement and passion. This especially includes one special girl watching this. You supported me as I built this, not knowing how it would turn out and trekking the wait, a longer than promised wait, mind you, to see it finished and delivered. If not for the love that we've shared these past years, this project would never have even began. So, all that to say, you had just as much a hand in this creation as I did. And I love you.
Who got that for you?
My girlfriend.
Who has the best girlfriend ever?